Have you ever felt your chest tighten after telling a lie? That split-second tension, like your body caught you before your mind did. This isn't coincidence, it's ancient programming. Long before languages formed, long before guilt was written into religion, the body already knew the cost of dissonance. Because when you lie, you split. Your words go one way, but your truth, buried, trembling, goes another. And in that moment, a fracture forms. Not just in your thoughts, but in the electromagnetic coherence between heart and brain. Science now shows what mystics always intuited. The body emits a measurable field, subtle, shifting, alive. This field isn't just poetic metaphor. It responds to intention. It reflects coherence. It mirrors stress, and nothing disrupts that field faster than internal contradiction. Imagine your energy like a pattern of ripples across a still lake. Honesty aligns those ripples, smooth, symmetrical, clear. But dishonesty, it disturbs the geometry. It sends waves crashing into one another, creating interference. And the deeper the lie, the greater the distortion. That's why chronic dishonesty doesn't just burden the mind, it drains vitality. Because every unspoken truth demands energy to suppress. You're spending life force maintaining a false image. You're wiring your nervous system to operate out of sync. And the longer that state persists, the more your field, your presence, feels off. People may not know why, but they'll feel it. Have you ever met someone who smiled with their mouth but not with their eyes? That strange feeling, like something's missing in their aura. That's not imagination. That's the body reading resonance. And the energy doesn't lie, even when words do. If you've ever felt this dissonance in yourself or others, you're not imagining it. Comment below. Have you ever sensed energy shift after telling even a harmless lie? You'd be surprised how many are silently waking up to the same realization. Long before the lie escapes your lips, your body already knows it's coming. It begins subtly. Your breathing shallows, your pupils contract, micromuscles twitch in your face, and deeper still, your gut, the enteric brain, fires signals that something is out of sync. This isn't philosophy, it's biology. The vagus nerve, which connects your brainstem to your heart and gut, acts like an internal surveillance system. It senses safety, or the lack of it, before you consciously register danger. And when you prepare to deceive, even if it's just a small one, the system activates. Your heart rate alters, your blood pressure shifts, and most critically, the heart's rhythm loses coherence. Why does this matter? Because heart rhythm coherence isn't just about physical health. It determines the electromagnetic signature your body radiates, your energy field. In a calm, honest state, that field becomes ordered, harmonious. But under deception, it turns erratic, like static in a signal. This isn't something you can fake. You can master facial expressions. You can rehearse tone and posture. But the field doesn't lie. And this is why some people feel off without explanation. You meet someone and something inside you says, don't trust them. It's not judgment, it's resonance, or the absence of it. Because when someone speaks words that don't match their inner state, your body knows. Before your mind analyzes, before you figure it out, the field has already picked up the contradiction. Now imagine living in that state, daily. Your system constantly broadcasting dissonance. That isn't just emotional fatigue, it's energetic erosion. No amount of caffeine or motivational quotes can compensate for a life lived out of alignment. And here's the deeper mystery. Repeated dishonesty rewires your nervous system. You start to lose touch, not just with truth, but with the subtle sensations that truth brings, like silence after clarity, or calm after confession. Many forget what that even feels like, but maybe you remember, or maybe this stirred something buried. Let it rise, and if it resonates, let it ripple. Comment what it triggered in you. You never know who needs to read exactly what you're about to write. Not all wounds leave scars on the skin. Some settle deeper, etched into muscle memory, buried in breath patterns, recorded in the quiet between heartbeats. When you lie, you may think the act is over once the words are spoken. But inside, your body has just written a new line into its invisible script. Every lie, especially the ones repeated, becomes a micro-trauma. Not dramatic, not explosive, but erosive. Because dishonesty doesn't just distort energy, it fragments identity. You become split between who you are and who you pretend to be. And over time, that split creates friction, not just in your thoughts, but in your tissues. Science now explores how trauma embeds itself physically: tightness in the diaphragm, frozen muscles in the shoulders, tension in the jaw. But what about the trauma we choose? What about the lie we tell to keep the peace? The truth we silence to protect someone? The version of ourselves we perform because we're afraid to be seen? Each one carves its name into your nervous system. Each one clouds the signal of your field, dimming its resonance. And here's the paradox. We often lie to protect ourselves, but the real cost is disconnection from others, from presence, and from our own bodies. You begin to second-guess your instincts. You mistrust your gut. You hesitate to speak up, not because you lack words, but because you've trained your system to fear authenticity. And slowly, you vanish. Not from the world, but from yourself. You smile at the right times. You say what's expected. But inside, there's static where clarity once lived. Have you ever told a lie that haunted your body more than your mind? A truth you buried that still pulses under your skin? Your body remembers, and your energy doesn't forget. Share what came up when you read this. You'd be amazed how many others are feeling the same ache and hiding it with the same smile. This space is here for that truth. No judgment, just resonance. Not all energy disturbances stay within us. Some ripple outward, altering how others feel in our presence, even if they don't consciously know why. You felt this before. You walked into a room and everything seemed fine. People smiled, words flowed, but something felt off. There was a tension hiding beneath politeness, a fracture beneath the small talk, and your body noticed it before your mind could explain it. This is resonance at work. Our energy fields are not bubbles, they're bridges, subtle currents of electromagnetic information constantly interacting with those around us. And when your own field is misaligned, when it's pulsing with withheld truths or layered with dishonest intent, it disrupts that interaction. You don't have to say anything. People still feel it. They may not accuse you, but they pull back slightly. Their tone changes. Their guard rises. Why? Because at a subconscious level, humans are biologically tuned to detect energetic dissonance. It's a survival instinct. When someone's words and field don't match, the system interprets it as a potential threat. And so, without knowing why, others may distance themselves. You may feel misunderstood, unseen, untrusted. But here's the haunting twist. You may be the one creating the static, not out of malice, but out of habit. Most people don't lie to deceive. They lie to protect, to fit in, to avoid judgment, to avoid discomfort. But even the softest lie, when repeated, becomes a frequency, one that blurs your presence. And over time, others may feel that blur more than your essence. If you've ever lost connection with someone and couldn't explain why, look inward. Was there something unsaid, untrue, unaligned? Sometimes the most powerful healing doesn't come from speaking truth to others, but from first restoring coherence in your own field. And when you do, the energy around you shifts. People soften, conversations deepen, trust rebuilds, not because you tried harder, but because your frequency returned home. Have you ever felt someone's energy change after they finally spoke the truth? Share the moment. Others need to remember that truth doesn't just heal, it harmonizes. The most dangerous lies aren't the ones we tell others, they're the ones we repeat quietly to ourselves. I'm fine. I don't care. This doesn't bother me. I've moved on. At first, they feel like small comforts, a way to bypass pain, to maintain control, to avoid chaos. But over time, they become cages, because your nervous system knows the truth. Your energy field, subtle but unwavering, detects the contradiction, and it begins to adapt. It starts suppressing emotional signals, not to help you, but to protect you. You stop crying not because you've healed, but because your system no longer trusts the signal is safe to release. You stop reacting not because you're at peace, but because your field is numb from overcorrection. And the longer these self-deceptions continue, the more fragmented you feel. Not broken, just blurred. You begin to lose track of your authentic frequency. You forget what joy felt like before it was filtered. You forget what truth sounded like before it had to be softened. And here's where the danger lies. You start performing yourself, smiling at your own reflection, repeating your own affirmations, hoping they'll stick. But if they're not built on truth, they bounce, because your energy field can't be tricked. It doesn't obey intentions, it obeys alignment. You can say all the right things, but if your body's truth doesn't match your voice, the signal stutters. Ever had someone say, "I'm happy," while their shoulders slump? Or whisper, "I'm okay," with eyes that betray them? That's the field overriding the script. So ask yourself, what part of you have you silenced for too long? What truth have you locked away, convinced it's safer unspoken? You don't have to answer out loud, but breathe into it. Feel where it lives in your body. And if you're brave enough, comment what truth you're slowly learning to face. Because sometimes, seeing one person name their inner lie is enough to help another remember their truth. Some things vanish when spoken, but lies, they linger. Long after the conversation ends, long after the laughter fades and the room is quiet again, something remains. It's not the words, it's the frequency behind them. You may walk away thinking you handled it well, that nobody noticed, that your secret stayed safe. But the space remembers. So does the other person's nervous system. And, most importantly, so does yours. Energy doesn't just pass through, it imprints. Every lie leaves a trace, subtle, like a fingerprint pressed against silence. This is why certain rooms feel heavy for no reason. Why some conversations leave you exhausted, even when they seemed polite. It's not the topic, it's the frequency. Incoherence echoes, and when dishonesty fuels it, the field becomes clouded, distorted. Even if both people smile, even if no one speaks the truth aloud. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and felt emotionally drained without knowing why? You weren't imagining it. Your field was reading residue, and that residue isn't neutral. It clings. It shows up later as restlessness, irritability, sleeplessness, a subtle sense that something's off, even if you can't name it. That's the body asking for release. That's the field asking for realignment. And ironically, the only way to clear it is to do what we were afraid to do in the first place. Be honest, not brutally, not dramatically, but cleanly. Because the truth is an energetic cleanser. It may sting at first, but it restores harmony. The good news? Fields are resilient. They can realign. They want to. All they need is authenticity, spoken, lived, or even just acknowledged within. Have you ever felt that residue after an interaction? That invisible weight that doesn't belong to your thoughts, but to your energy? Write about it. Not for others, for yourself. But if you share, you might just trigger someone else's remembering. One lie rarely walks alone. It opens the door, invites others in, and slowly, a pattern emerges. A spiral, small at first, but tightening with each turn. You lie once to avoid conflict, then again to maintain the illusion. Before you realize it, you're no longer navigating truth and falsehood. You're managing a narrative. But your energy field isn't designed for narrative maintenance. It's designed for resonance, for coherence, for flow. The more you manage a false signal, the more energy it costs you. You begin to leak vitality. You feel tired after basic interactions. You overthink every message, every tone, every word. Your nervous system stays on high alert, not because of danger, but because of dissonance. You've unknowingly made your body a battlefield between who you are and who you perform. And here's the deeper trap. Lies become the scaffolding of your identity. You start believing them. You forget where the truth ends and the illusion begins. This is how spiritual exhaustion forms, not from trauma, but from prolonged disconnection from self. It's the fatigue of living out of alignment, and your energy field, it tries to warn you. Through tension, irritability, restlessness, a sudden aversion to silence, because in silence the truth echoes loudest. But there's hope. You don't need a grand confession. You don't need to tear it all down overnight. You start with one act of energetic honesty, one breath where you stop performing, one sentence where you speak what's real, one moment where you let your frequency settle, without spin, without fear. It won't fix everything, but it disrupts the spiral. It breaks the momentum. And in that stillness, your field begins to realign, not because you changed your story, but because you returned to your signal. If you've ever felt trapped in a version of yourself built on avoidance, you're not alone. Comment, I see the spiral, if this landed. Sometimes naming it is the first act of truth. There is a moment, quiet, subtle, unannounced, when something within you chooses truth. Not the dramatic kind, not a public confession, just the simple, steady act of no longer abandoning yourself. That moment shifts everything. Your shoulders relax, your breath deepens, your eyes meet the mirror without flinching. Because truth, when fully embodied, doesn't need defense. It doesn't argue, it doesn't convince, it simply is, and your energy field knows, it responds. Suddenly the fog lifts, not all at once, but enough to remember what clarity feels like, enough to feel the weight of the lie leave your chest, like an exhale you didn't know you were holding. This isn't about morality, it's about energetic health. When you live in truth, your field becomes clean, not perfect, but aligned. You attract differently. You speak with less effort. People feel safer around you, not because of what you say, but because of what you no longer suppress. You become congruent, and congruence is magnetic. It invites authenticity from others. It dissolves the games. It rebuilds trust, not just in relationships, but in yourself. The journey back to resonance is not a straight line, but each step, each small truth spoken, even just to yourself, is a return. And in that return, something ancient awakens, the knowing that you were never broken, only buried. So let this be your reminder. You don't owe the world a version of yourself that keeps you in pieces. Speak your truth, not loudly, not forcefully, but clearly. Even if your voice shakes, even if the truth is small, especially then, because in a world saturated with noise, one honest vibration echoes further than 1,000 empty signals. Now ask yourself, what's the one truth I've been carrying quietly, hoping no one would notice? You don't have to say it here, but if you do, you might just find someone else whispering, "Me too." If this journey stirred something in you, don't just move on. Let your field acknowledge it. Drop a comment. Hit the like not for the algorithm, but as a signal to yourself. I felt that. Subscribe if you want more stories that don't just entertain, but awaken. Because maybe the truth was never meant to be hidden, only remembered.